I couldn't even be white van driver because I couldn't read the addresses. And I started cutting grass, walking around the streets with a lawnmower when I was like 14, 15. By the time I got to 18, I had like 5 or 6 men working for me. By the time I got to like 19, 20, I had 25 men. Got to about 21, I got myself a PA. And that really was the turning point. And she turned me into a superstar. And she said, well, it's worth a lot more money than that. I said, no, but if I give you the 12 tomorrow, and then I'll pay you the rest of it over the next 3 years. And I kind of used that through my career of being creative. You start taking those baby steps from small stuff, and you start building it up. I take in my mind's eye the whiteboard of the day and clean it all to the edges. There's a 0 on it, it's a clean board. And I've neutralised and will not let worry come into my life. Every single day you've got to take action. Or if you don't, have a load of worry. Asking for help is a great tool. If you can learn how to get past yourself and ask people for help, I think that will get you all the way forward. Driven wasn't an option, it was just who I became, because it was the only way I knew how to not be the little person, and I knew there was more in me to be a big person, a big intelligent grown-up. Well, I'd spent most of my school life being the duncy in the class, so I was very, very driven to change that when I left school.
James Martin, welcome to the Driven Podcast.
You are very welcome, my friend. After we found you, we were going around the house, he's looking for the studio, we found you, good.
Finding the parking app, got all sorted.
All done, yeah, thank you.
So, thanks for coming on. As you know, this podcast is called the Driven Podcast. So what does being driven mean to you personally?
Being driven, what does it mean? Jamie, I think it isn't a thing, it's what I've always had. You know, from 14 years old to try and prove myself that I'm not thick from my dyslexic days at school. Driven wasn't an option, it was just who I became, because it was the only way I knew how to not be the little person, and I knew there was more in me to be a big person, a big sort of intelligent grown-up. Well, I'd spent most of my school life being the duncy in the class, so I was very, very driven to change that when I left school. You know, if that's an answer to what driven is. Driven, I mean, people say to me, Jamie, are you what's it like now you're successful? I have no thoughts that I'm successful now. I just see it as that I get up every morning and I want to create stuff and do stuff that is successful in a way that of each project we try. That makes sense. There's
no right or wrong answer to that. I mean, that's why we ask every guest, because it's a personable thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's individual. And how do you introduce yourself to people that don't know you, haven't come across you yet? Who is James Martin? If
we're out to dinner and someone says, what do you do? I say, well, we own various businesses, but ultimately I'm an entrepreneur, and I work every day to try and improve the businesses we've got or find new opportunities. You know, the word entrepreneur, if you introduce yourself as an entrepreneur, you are a hunting person that will take risks. You know, that's kind of what we do, you know.
Yeah. And what's driving you at the moment?
Being around other people that are better than me, and I've changed that. So I've years ago I've dumped the pub and dumped a set of mates that were sort of naysayers and stuff like that, and I've now got myself into a community, the same community that you're in with us at Baddow Park House. The dinner, you know, full of entrepreneurs that come together once a month, and that inspires you to be even more driven to do more stuff, especially when you listen to young people like yourself and other techie people that are just earning serious amounts of money out of great ideas with you know, Gen Z flair and attention to what customers need in this modern world. I get off on that. It's great.
Yeah.
No. You know.
And I see that in you as well. You know, you're quite curious, aren't you? And always looking and trying to learn.
Yeah.
And so we always start this podcast by going back a little bit. And so you touched on, you know, you left school at 14, and you know, it's quite well documented. You know, you're quite heavily dyslexic, and you spoke a lot about that. So I don't want to go too much into that because I think people can find that out elsewhere.
Yeah.
But what was life like back then at 14 when you're leaving school?
Yeah, I mean, 14 was good to leave, to get out of that day-to-day sort of performance mode and trudgery. You know, it was pretty shit. You know, you're bullied at school and you had to become a clown. Otherwise, you would just become the dunce. So, you'd run amok with the big boys and the older boys as the clown. So you didn't get put on. I learned next to nothing at school. All I learned was how to avoid being beaten up. And then when I left school was really my education. Jamie, my education was probably in the corner of my mum and dad's pub, listening to the old guys that who were car dealers and tyre fitters and tyre shops and, had little businesses, listening to all their weird and wonderful stories of the day. That kind of inspired me a bit. But it was, it wasn't, my childhood wasn't great. It was a bit of a grin and bear it every day. And I look forward to the weekends where you just, muck around over the field and get away from that condensed. You were being watched all the time at school for how you performed in scoring, whether you could read the pages, whether you could do the exams, and I kind of hated that because I couldn't do it.
Yeah. And so then, how did that dyslexia kind of shape life as you grew up and left school?
I think a couple of things happened really, Jamie. That I met someone that talked to me about brain cells one day when I was probably in my early teens. And they said, you do know that everybody's got the same amount of brain cells. And I think they were trying to comfort me or cuddle me in a way to say, you're not thick. And I kind of took that on, that everybody's got the same amount of brain cells. It's how you put them together and what you do with the decisions that you make. And I just found myself sort of, I couldn't even be, Jamie, white van driver because I couldn't read the addresses. So I had to do something. And I started cutting grass, walking around the streets with a lawnmower, when I was like 14, 15. And then I gradually sort of progressed to a little car that I put all the stuff in, then a little van. And then by the time I got to 18, I had like 5 or 6 men working for me. By the time I got to like 19, 20, I had like 25 men older than me, doing contracts and doing stuff with me. And to get a pound note and to be able to get, that money, as soon as I worked the mechanism and the system for doing that, we were away. We were doing commercial work, we were doing Harold and Hilda in their houses, and we had really got traction and the feel for that domestic and commercial environment for garden care and tree surgery and all things green and muddy. We knew how to do that and we knew how to do it well.
What was that like then? So being 20 years old and having 25, 30 people working with you, what was that, did you feel pressure?
I was talking to Ollie on the way up in the car. It was difficult because, I was trying to be the entrepreneur that I didn't even know what that word meant back then, and the manager of the company and the operator of the company and climbing trees, cutting grass myself. It was all going on. And Friday was like a bit of a nightmare, trying to do payroll. And then eventually, as things progressed, as I got to about 21, I got myself a PA. Okay. And that really was the turning point. She was 3 days a week, and she was very posh, and she came from a legal background. She was a legal clerk's PA. She didn't want to go to London anymore. And she came in 3 days a week, found her in my mum and dad's pub, and she turned me into a superstar. She showed me how to write letters, do invoicing. She read all the mail. She started reading contracts for me. She started doing bidding processes with me. And she got up to 4 days a week. And that difference of having someone do all the trudgery stuff started turning, that sort of stumbling business into a real proper grown-up animal, and we progressed very quick. We got up to sort of almost 70 people by the time I was 24. We were busy, and we were national by then. We were up and down the country.
Yeah, that's mad. And when you employed this lady, was that a big turning point for you mentally as well, to understand that you can offload a lot of these things that you struggle with and give them to someone else?
I didn't find it a problem to offload. I just wanted to chuck them away. So to when she turned up and said, look, just, let me tax and insure the cars. Oh, it's brilliant. Yeah. No forms for me to fill out, no stuff like that. Put her on the bank so she could do the bank for me. She did the bank, paying in all the checks and stuff. I mean, it was a real big turning point because it allowed me to go off and do me stuff, finding new customers. The one key art for an entrepreneur is he needs to have the qualities to go and find daily, every single day, new customers, new opportunities, find out different ways of doing things, find out how to be frugal with costs, and I was allowed to go and do all of those things and network and do all the stuff that we needed to do to grow the business.
Yeah. And was that something that come naturally to you? Was that your skill set?
I don't think you've got a choice of being a sort of a people person if you're dyslexic, because you can't go and read about something, and there was no YouTube back then. So you're going to have to be some type of an exuberant personality to get by, even if it's to tell someone that you haven't got your right glasses, could you read the underground map for me? You're going to have to be able to do that interface. And I use those same social skills to get customers and to knock on doors and get myself through doors that perhaps you couldn't do by just writing a letter or making a phone call. If you turned up and said, hiya, we used to really underplay it, Jamie. We used to just turn up and say, look, we're a young company. We're looking for more customers. I know you've got these 4 colleges, and apparently you're the man to see that gives out all the work. Is there any chance you could give us a break? And just say it just as it is, as opposed to we're the new fantastic company in the world. Just say it as it is. And I think the authenticity that I try to coach, even now, be yourself. And say what you want. And if you do those 2 things, you will go a long way,
Yeah. I think that's where it comes back to people buy from people, don't they?
Yes.
And I think if you build that personal relationship, like you say, be authentic, be genuine.
Yeah. And I think you find that someone seeing someone with that much ambition, and they're higher up the ladder than you are, they will lean down and give you a hand up. I mean, they kind of will. You and I will do it. If we see some young upstart and they're asking a million questions, say, right, stop. Phone me up next week when I've got time. I'll give you an hour of my time on the phone. Ask me all them questions, but not now. If I go to a conference, someone might corner me, and I'll say, I can see in you that you've got a fire in your belly to learn. They won't be able to afford one of our master classes or something, but I'll definitely spend time to give them my little bit of wisdom. The whole idea of what I'm doing at the moment, Jamie, is to try and get young entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs to where they want to go to quicker with less scars, because we've all got to have scars, trip-ups and hiccups to get to where we want to do. I just feel that with a little bit of knowledge in a community of others, you could get there quicker.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we'll go on to those bits a little bit later with what you're working on at the moment. But just going back to Ruskin, so you built that business up. What was it where did it get to at the height?
Yeah, we sold it the first time for like 650 grand, when 650 grand was a lot of money.
Yeah. What year was that, just for some context?
God, I have to think about it. Everybody asked me this question. It was like, I think I was 26, 27.
Okay.
And an American national company bought it off of us. They managed to run it into the floor within sort of about 18 months.
Right.
And then the liquidators came to me and said, would I like to buy it back? And I sort of bought it back for next to nothing, and then built it all up again and did it again. But we were getting up there. We were national. We had a place in Durham. We had another place in Southern Ireland. We were building golf courses, like putting all the trees on golf courses. We had quite a big thing going on, and we had some real superstar customers. We used to do Andrew Lloyd Webber's estate. We used to do big estates in Ireland and stuff. Estates was our thing, estate management, where we'd go over, survey all the trees on the estate and give them this sort of report, and then from the report there was works to be done, and then we used to carry out the works. Yeah. So it was good.
What was it like buying that business back, and could you easily spot the problems and the things that they'd messed up?
The customers that had already left them had already been on the phone to me.
Oh, okay.
What's going on? I knew it, and I knew it was coming. I could see it 6 months previous. I knew it was coming. And I said, well, if you just wait, we're about to get in. And I got back in the saddle and just did it all again. Yeah. Just went round, same thing, and picked up some new ones and tried to repair some of the relationships. But I could do that quite easily, because I said, well, as you know, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
It was the fault of the people that I'd sold to. Let's see what we can do and repair it. And, we put some investment time in. We did some free quotes, some free surveys for people to get them back on board again. Local authority was one of our big customers, and I knew a lot of the tree officers that were there. They were kind of my mates. They were in my phone book, and I was able to get them back on board again,
Yeah. And then you sold that business again?
Sold that business again, yeah.
Who bought it the second time?
Second time we did, it was like a management buyout with an investor. So there was an uncle involved that had come in, he put some money in, and the management that I had then bought it out from me. And that was a lot bigger payday. It was like 1.6 million the second time. But this is 40 odd years. It's a long time ago. And this time I didn't wrap the Porsche around the tree without the insurance, and I did pay the tax, and the first time I didn't. So, it was the heady days, and I really took that money then, Jamie, and just bought land and property. That sort of, I just went towards that as to really push the money away from me, so there was something tangible there. Otherwise, you're young and you've been working hard. You want to do all those big flashy things, and I needed to keep my feet on the ground.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you, because you're quite big in property, so that started more from potentially not trusting yourself with the money.
Yeah. I think it was, but I'd been locked out of the industry as well. So they'd put a caveat lock of 3 years that I couldn't get into it. And it was quite a strong contract, and that meant that I had to pivot and do something different. I got involved with another partner in land. He was like a barrister in planning, and I learned a lot from him. So I had sort of like 4 or 5 years with him, learning about enveloping onto villages with land, green space into housing. We did a lot of work on that. We did 2 or 3 big sites on that, and had some big paydays from that.
Yeah. We will go into property, but for any entrepreneurs listening now who thinking of selling their business one day or soon, whatever it be, what piece of advice would you give to them, having been through it a couple of times?
I think the thing that I hadn't done then, because I didn't know anything about it, I didn't know any better. I actually got approached to have the business bought off of me, and was flattered and went down that route, and probably sold it for too little money the first time. I think that you should always be building your business so it's ready for sale. All the things you put through it, if you're thinking of selling it, you need to take them out. The Tesla cars and the wages for your girlfriend or whatever it might be, the people that are on the payroll but not actually contributing to the day-to-day workings. So you get more fat on the bottom line for the EBITDA. But I think that, get an agent who will promote you, and that agent will also look down into your business and say you need to change that, and you need to polish that up, and you need to make that leaner, or put more money into that, or put more money into promotion, or PR yourself within the industry bigger, whatever it might be. But Grant Thornton or one of these big accountant houses that just do that, mergers and acquisitions, I would definitely use them and try and do a cost of the sale of it as a sealed cap, so it doesn't run away with you. So you sit down with them, they'll show you what you need to do to get polished, absolutely polished for sale, and then you then seal that as a fixed fee. Yeah,
and I actually have sat down with them as well. Just, met a guy from there, and something that most people probably won't understand is you need to get them involved early.
Yes, very early.
Probably a couple of years realistically before you want to sell.
Because you need to just change those tweaks so the balance sheets look right to when you do actually sell. And the other thing is, if you're thinking of selling, from the minute you go to an agent, you could be easily 3 years to get out. From the moment of a buyer, it can be, the average is 18 months. So, you could be from the concept that, yes, we would consider that, it's probably 3 years before you get an exit.
Yeah, I think I don't think many people would be aware of that. So I think it's important they know that. And obviously, as you've built your businesses, you've become, I'd say, quite a good builder of teams as well.
Yeah.
So what's your approach to building teams and hiring people?
I think that my mindset right from the start is that not how, but who is going to run the companies that are either buying or creating and building. So the key members of staff need to be looking like they are the managing, directing owners of the business. I want them to own it. I want them to worry about it. I don't want to worry about it. So I'll go and pay over the odds for superstars from an industry. So we take the wedding venue as an example. We hunted down 3 superstar people that were big venue owners, people that ran venues, and they managed venues. We interviewed them all, and I had a particular person that I liked. They wouldn't come across because they were too secure with where they were. So we did a thing. I nicked it out of Richard Branson's book, where we gave Kelly, who's the managing director of Baddow Park House, the wedding venue, unlimited paid holiday. And that was enough just to bring her across the line to say that, that the grass is definitely greener on the other side. And she was working for a shareholder organisation, and I'm a single owner. And I was trying to explain to her, we are not looking to rip out dividends out of this business to start with. We want it to grow and become a machine that earns in year 4. We're not looking for that now. But for her to have that unlimited paid holiday, as the team leader, she takes very little holiday.
I was going to say, I bet she never takes it.
She never turns her phone off, but it's there, it's there. And if she does need it, she might take a Friday and a Monday and have a long weekend with her family, but not drop the ball in between. Everything's organised and she gets prepped for going away. But team building, Jamie, is I love it, because I love to bring people in and it's like little jigsaw puzzles. You put them all together to how they're going to fit in. But the one thing we'll always say, we've just done chefs, new kitchen we're building at that particular business, and the chefs sat in there and they're on plenty of money, and then we've brought them in from very good jobs where they are, and we said to them, how good are you at picking up litter? And they look at me and I said, no. And moving furniture, are your moving furniture skills any good? And they're looking at me, and I said, no. Before you say yes to this job, we're a team. Yeah. And if we're moving sofas from one end of the building to the other, we will ask you to help us if your back's all right, because we need help. It is not, don't ever quote me, I'm just a chef, because you're not just anything. You're part of the team. And we try and instill that. We allow people to fail in their departments, not on the same thing twice, obviously, but we allow them to have a sense of they can make mistakes. And if they can make mistakes in there, then they're learning inside the role they've got. And that's very important.
But people have to make mistakes, don't they? They have to find, their faults, and how else do you learn? Yeah. I think if something, when you just said then about the holiday thing, to me, that's not about having unpaid holiday, that's about the trust that you're giving that person.
Yeah, very true.
And I think the trust that people feel, gets reciprocated, doesn't it? Yeah. So then they want to go above and beyond for
I've had to do more of it, and that's not fiddle with the businesses. We run a big estate at Baddow Park and at other estates that we own. And my estate manager, I need to leave him alone more often. Like let him get on with it. And the banter that goes on, he says, have you finished meddling? And I have to shut up and walk away, because they are quite capable of doing it. But I've got some enthusiastic idea that I think that would be smart at this time. And then he sort of reminds me that we've already got 4 projects on and we're quite busy as it is, and they get on with it. And they run it very well. And Jamie, they are young, enthusiastic people. I like having that youthfulness around me, because they get on, and they've got all the tech, and they've got great ideas for making things slicker and quicker, Yeah.
No, as I say, I've been to your venue. Yeah. And staff are amazing. Yeah. And you can tell they genuinely care. Yeah, they about do. What they're doing. But we'll go on to property. So you've got a lot of property. I think I was doing some research, and it's about 30 odd million that you have. So you touched on how that started for you, but how did that progress from putting a little bit of money in from the business that you sold into a huge property?
I think the biggest thing was really getting, when you're getting these paydays back then, when we were getting like 90 houses on a particular site, and you've got Red Row Homes paying you a ton of money. The one thing was you had to manage the taxation on it. If you drew the money out to buy a boat, you could end up paying another 40% tax if you wanted to be a Wally, running around Monaco in a boat or something. That wasn't for me. I wanted to safeguard the money. And I think from them early days of being not clever with money, when I first had these big paydays, because you're just not used to it. You might be having sort of successful months every month, but you suddenly get a chunk of change. You're just not used to handling it. And I realised that I wasn't good at it the first time round. Second time I was better, and like the third time I was really studious to make sure that I put it into safe places. And one of the old boys in the bar once said, they're never making more land, mate. And actually that's wrong, because Dubai proves that they are making more land. But I mean, and that was it. It was to buy bricks and mortar, things that were there. Someone told me a stat that every sort of 15 years property doubles, and that's kind of true. So you kind of, you're banked in on it, whether it's a raw field or it's a commercial property. But commercial property is where my real love is, because it looks after itself. They're self-contained leases. They have to look after the property themselves. And if it all goes horribly wrong, they're out and new ones are in. And it's not like domestic property. Domestic property has its issues with, lag of a rent, where there's issues, or you're having to go to the court to get people out because they're not paying, and you've got this lag of rent. Well, commercial property is not like that. 27 days and you can take someone's lease away from them. Yeah, they've not paid.
It's very quick.
Very easy. Not that we do that, by the way, but we might have done it once in our whole time. But it has very good safeguards.
Yeah, and when you was what must have been around 30 when you started investing in property. Was there any advisors that you worked with, or was it something you kind of stumbled into?
Yeah, I mean, I had a partner, this guy Andy, that I worked with, and we've subsequently fallen out because the numbers got big. And when the numbers get big, it gets crucial. And we fell out over a deal, this, that, and the other. He said, she said, and it all went horribly wrong. But I did learn a lot from him. So it wasn't all crap, because I did learn a lot from him, and he'd been in it a lot longer than me. And it was about buying property at the right time, buying property he showed me how to make bids on property, proper bids with timelines to the bid being accepted or not, proof of funds. This was another thing, get the bank on board. Show proof of funds that you can say, well, I'm not going to obviously give you that amount of money, but I'll give you this amount of money. Here's the proof of funds, and we need an answer within the next 28 days. And it put them on the foot that they could take our offer or not. And we would make 6 or 7 offers a month to different properties. Well, we only needed one every 3 months to come in on what we'd asked for, and that was enough to have enough fat in it to be able to play with it on planning. Planning is a long game. I've had property stuff that I've owned for 25 plus years, and we still haven't got planning on it. But I've got others that we've had sort of 2 or 3 years, and we've got mega planning on it. So you need to have a few on the go if you're doing raw land into commercial or housing. And that's why I don't do so much of that now. We still own some pockets of land, but it's really about commercial property that you can polish up and tidy up that doesn't require planning. You're doing remedial upgrading works on it, and you're turning an old set of sheds into a business park. And that's a big flip, because you don't need planning to do that. But what you've actually done is created a lot more churning model per month on rent.
Yeah. So you always look for something that you can add value to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't build new sites out; too expensive. So we would look for. And Jamie, we have an in-house set of builders. They've been with us for years, and we have another in-house set of subcontractors that mainly subcontract to us. Might do the odd jobs, but when we've got projects on, most of those guys are working for us, whether it be renovating a warehouse or building another part of the wedding venue. There's full-time activity always going on. And we're doing that to roll out our taxes. On our profits, we don't want to pay the tax man. We'd much prefer to invest it back into our real estate and upgrade all the time.
Yeah, and are you still on the hunt for new deals at the minute?
Always. If anybody's out there that's got some nice commercial property in the Essex area, if you could contact me. It's James Martin, entrepreneur. Thank you. That was me.
A little plug for you there.
But no, listen, Jamie, always, wherever I go, if I'm meeting new people, you said how to introduce myself, I'd always say, and always looking for other wedding venues or commercial property. And, you don't know who's going to come out of the woodwork with something. And I will commonly jump over fences and go and knock on doors. And, if there's a site I particularly see that's run down and, I think that could be hatched out and done. Go and speak to the owners, and it might take you sort of 3 or 4 years to keep knocking on the door and going back. But, eventually, they'll be ready to sell.
That's the thing people don't seem to do anymore, is it? Knock on the doors, go and have the actual face-to-face physical conversations.
Yeah. And I think that's what the people need to do more of. But I think the modern twist on that is what you're doing and what I'm doing with YouTube and podcasts, etc. Is people can come and look us up behind closed doors of who are they? Are they real people? Are they swervy? Have they been around long? What do they do? What are they talking about? So they can actually meet me before they meet me. And from what we're doing on Instagram and podcasts, we're getting people just message in. I have a building. Would you like to come and look at it? I've seen an opportunity. I think it's something you might be interested in. Well, that means you're head and shoulders ahead of most other people looking.
Yeah, that was the real wake-up moment for me to start this podcast is I've been on guest on a few podcasts, and went to a meeting with a particular business owner who was looking to sell his business, and he'd just spent the half an hour drive listening to me on the podcast, and he already knew me. He already, you know, there was no awkwardness in that meeting. It was like he'd spent time with me already, and it was like, wow, if you can do this on steroids and really ramp that up, you know, how many more people can?
But I think, Jamie, the real conversation is that the authenticity of what you do on the podcast is where you will win. Yeah. When you know, you and I watch lots of podcasts. Ollie, who's with us, my engineer today and director, you know, we watch podcasts. You see this highly produced piece of work, but there's no authenticity behind it. And what you want to be listening to people or taking advice or being inquisitive with people that have genuinely been there before, who genuinely know what they're talking about. And I think people can smell a rat a mile away, you know.
100%, and that's what we want to do here. You know, we want to get people that have been there, done it, or doing it, and ask the questions that they might not have been asked before. So one of my questions was, do you remember your first commercial property deal, and also how did you fund it? Because I feel like a lot of people now are seeing all these different creative ways of financing stuff. You know, have you done anything creative in your time? I
think that back in the day, the first thing was a yard from a farmer, and the old farmers are hard to deal with, but he was telling me about a problem that he was having with his daughter, and he had to pay some money to get her a house, and he was looking to, you know, another £12,000 for this deposit. And I said, well, if I give you £12,000, can I have the yard on the corner? And he said, well, it's worth a lot more money than that. I said, no, but if I give you the 12 tomorrow, because I knew he needed the money sharpish, and then I'll pay you the rest of it over the next 3 years. And he agreed to it, and we drew a contract up, and that was a learning curve to find a solicitor to draw this one-off contract, you know, and that was a big learning curve. And I kind of used that through my career of being creative, because in the early days you haven't got 4 million quid to buy a big lump of land or a lump of property. You've got to be on the long game, and sometimes that might be with vendor finance, where, you know, they want a headline figure. You ask them where they got the valuation from. They said, but they made it up in their head, and you twist it on them and you say, well, I'll tell you what to do. I think that's overinflated. However, I'll give you that, but I need to pay you over 4 years. Well, you sealed the price, you're in contract, or you do a lease to purchase, where you lease the land and purchase it. But there are creative ways of doing it. I mean, you know, that yard now, I've sold that, I don't know, 20 years ago, and that gave me another chunk of change to then put into another property. And the kind of the steps go on from that. You start taking those baby steps, some small stuff, and you start building it up. But the one thing I've really learned over say the last 20 years is try and buy as big as you can, because it's the same amount of sweat to put 3 houses on a little bit of land than it is to put 90 houses on an old garden centre. You know, it's the same amount of time, it's just bigger numbers, and the sweat is about the same. You know, and if you've got, I talk about on my pod, if you've got worry, organised, so no one should worry, because worry is neutralised by action. And if you've got that right in your head, there is no more worry. You've got the actions right, and you put action there first, and that neutralises worry. I mean, that's easy for me to say, but I've had long time, lots of years, neutralising worry with action. You know?
You've just stolen my next question, because that was
sorry.
No, so I've heard you talk about this at the dinner, which is, you know, you've got, I'd say, a different approach, but you're quite open about how you approach anxiety, worry, stress. You know, you just don't have any, do you? No,
I don't. I mean, I've done that perhaps for the last 16 years. Is I do the whiteboard. Have I told you about the whiteboard? So you have busy days, and you get in at 8, and you stuff some silly bit of food down that you shouldn't eat that late, and then you sit up watching YouTube, and then there's bedtime, and you've just had a cup of tea, and you've been watching a screen. I go to sleep straight away at midnight. And the only way I can do that is I take in my mind's eye the whiteboard of the day with all the different coloured markers on it, and then I just take a new rubber out of the packet and clean the whiteboard. Then I take out a new fluffy rag and clean it all to the edges. There's 0 on it. It's a clean board. And I shut my eyes tight so you see little stars, and I watch one of them disappear into the distance, and I go to sleep.
Every night?
I'm like, every night. Like last night, I did exactly the same. I go to sleep.
Yeah.
I set the alarm up for 4:45, get up and start the day again. And it's just a way I've got into that routine, and I've neutralised and will not let worry come into my life. I've just absolutely taken it out. But it means that you have to work quite hard, because you've got to do action. Well, action's hard. Every single day you've got to take action. Or if you don't, have a load of worry. It's up to you. They're both hard, but action's easier because it's actually getting you towards a goal that you wouldn't have with. Worry is something that hasn't happened yet anyway, and it might never happen. It's only your brain having tricks with you, you know?
Yeah, in theory, it's a wasted emotion, isn't it?
Yeah,
because
it
like you
is.
say, something in the future that...
Stress is not. Stress is a real emotion, and you can put yourself into a stressful position. Well, you need to work out how to stop doing that, or if you do it, embrace it and have it as a school day where you learn how to manage it at that stress level. But you know, you can actually manage that yourself by saying things like, "No, I can't do that other podcast on Wednesday as much as I would, but that's going to put me into a stressful position," or whatever the situation might be.
If someone's feeling, overwhelmed, stressed at the moment, you've said action is the way through it, but sometimes when you're in that, it's difficult, to see that light at the end of the tunnel, to see what action you need to take. So what sort of advice would you give to someone going through it?
Listen, and I'm speaking from senior years who've done it a long time, and it's easy for me to say that, and I hear your question, Jamie. And I still do it today, and I talk about it, is, I will take time out to a new location away from work on my own with nobody, no family, no one in there, and a little bit of a pen and paper with my dyslexic scribblings, just write some notes out, have a look at what are the issues, and you take that swirling cloud of issues and then bring them down into a list on paper. And then you can see that it doesn't really relate. Yeah. And then you end up with like 4 to 7 things that you need to do, then put them in priority. Bit of nature, bit of trees, bit of swimming, whatever floats your boat, bit of exercise, whatever it is. But I think there's definitely compartmentalisation that you need to get out of the environment that clutters your world sometimes, to just have vision, vision for what you are and why you're doing it. And ask those questions, why am I doing this, Yeah,
it sounds a bit weird. I do exactly the same. So there's a lake in the middle of a forest near where I live, and they've got a little bird watching hut. Yeah. I'll sit in there for an hour or whatever it is and just scribble everything down on a notepad. And then it's almost like, okay, that's out of my brain now. I don't need to. Just that, without even taking the action, that
could be enough just to vent it from your mind,
Then you, like you say, you prioritise an action off the back of it.
But I think that, we talk about mental health in the workplace. Was that, as an entrepreneur, you are putting yourself in the way of that problem most days by putting it on yourself. If not, just go and work for someone, take the 30, 40 grand, whatever it is, and go home and not worry, however it is. But, we are people that want it brought to us. Embrace the stress. When you're in stress, you are definitely learning. Those awkward moments is when you're actually getting a lesson into your body. But that whole thing of that, sitting in that old hut by the lake, or whatever, is cool. It's good. I think it's very, very good for you. Yeah. It brings you down to sort of like some base levels. It makes you think calmer and clearer. And the one thing, Jamie, is people, I'm having a shit day. It's all going wrong. Your brain hears that. It absolutely bloody hears it. And it will give you a proper stressful day and a proper crap week, because you just told it that that's what you want. So the language, that language you use on yourself, be careful what you say. You need to say, today's quite tough, but I think we can do it. And it will hear that. You hear it, your brain hears it, and off you go. And people around you also hear it,
100%. It's like you're training your brain, isn't it, to think that way. One last thing on property before we move on. If someone comes to you and, they're in their early 20s or whatever it is, and, James, I want to get into commercial property, don't know where to start, they might have a small amount of money behind them. What would you say? What would be the first starting points for them to go and get into commercial property?
I would say look at where you're going to operate from. You don't be too far away from where you live, because I think you can do what we call drive-by maintenance. That means you can keep an eye on that property by just swinging past it every now and again locally. If where you are local isn't a very good place for rental, then you might have to buy something nearer a more affluent market for commercial rents or whatever. It's no good having a big shed in Lincolnshire. No one goes through Lincolnshire. It's £2.50. If you come to the southeast, it's £10.50. So there are those geographical decisions to make. I would say you start looking at all the agents, go to agents and meet them. Is there any chance I could just meet you? I've got some ideas. I want to put something to you, and you'll get their ear and say, I'm looking to buy over £20 million worth of property over the next 10 years. I need some help. And they, okay. As opposed to, I've got £4.50 and I'd like to buy a commercial unit. Because if you start there, it's not going to get their attention. But if you tell the agent, this is my plan, and I've got minimal money at the moment, but I'm looking to bring some family money, or spin them a line that you are going to be buying more in the future, but I need help. I think the word asking for help, and I think I've said this in the dinner, asking for help is a great tool. If you can learn how to get past yourself and ask people for help, I think that will get you all the way forward. And commercial property, just look at just small sheds. There aren't enough small, 700 square feet, 1,500 square feet sheds. You could just buy a couple of those, on the corner of a farm or ex-farm buildings. They're always a good place that you can do up and get going. Shops and stuff, not so much for me. No. Definitely domestic housing, forget it, that the taxes are too high against you. Open storage, an open site. Put a nice big palisade fence around it with nice gates on it, some cameras, some technology for gate entry, shipping containers. There's so many different ways you can do it. Shipping containers you can finance through Lombard or something like that. So there's all different ways that you can do it. But my real tip, Jamie, would be go and find someone that's already doing it and see if you can run with them for a week. Just say, take a week out or 4 to 5, 2 days out. Is there any chance I could just shadow you for a bit?
You might be getting some messages after this.
No, please don't call me. Oh dear.
So you're into your 60s now, and to me, you are the definition of being driven. You've been doing it for years, but you're still doing it.
Yeah.
So you've recently started a podcast. You're also launching a mastermind. Why this new wave of things? Because
I am driven like that, and that's who I am, and I don't see retirement in my DNA. And I was listening to a small fact from The Guardian just after Christmas. From the day you retire, the average death was 5 years. So from the time that you say, I am now a retired person, you were dead within 5 years on average. So that was a great stat to be, why would we ever want to retire? I thoroughly enjoy the challenge of buying things, buying companies, setting up teams, making things work without me in it. That's a gas. I definitely don't need any more money, but I do love the challenge of being able to build it. And I love my family and community of entrepreneurs. And that's why I want to give back with the podcast, with the little Instagram messages I do. Mastermind that we're doing at Baddow Park House, that is for sort of more upper end entrepreneurs, £1 million turnover, that want to take it to the next level. So Mark Creaser and I are doing that, but there is a fee for it. It's a lot of our time. These people will have a lot of value from it. We will get them moving. You as an entrepreneur, you get to a certain level and you kind of bounce on the ceiling. And how do we get from here to there? And it might be that they need better advice to how they raise money. It might be that they need better advice on marketing and strategy. They might need that they need to pivot what they do slightly or tweak the model. Well, in their masterclasses, you get a lot of brain for your money because you're getting Mark and I with experience, but you're also getting everybody else that's come to sit in that room. I mean, you've been in them with Will and stuff like that. They're good places to get 100%. Great ideas, aren't they? Yeah. And you're getting network as well. You're getting a network of people as well. Of
course. Yeah. You will generally turn up with your problem and you're getting 5, 6, 7 different people.
And some of the ideas are complete rubbish. They would never work, but you only need one.
Yeah.
You only need one to solve that problem where you just go, I never thought of it that way round, or I've never considered doing it that way. Yeah. And off you go,
Yeah, 100%. What are you enjoying most about doing your podcast?
I think on the podcast on our pre-chat before we started here, what you said resonated with me. I am sharpening my pencil every time I do one, because I'm learning so much, and you were saying you were finding the same, that you're meeting some real cool people and you're getting direct words of nuggets. You know, it's like having your own masterclass turning up at the studio, because, you know, good guests will give that to you. I like young entrepreneurs coming on, because I think I can fix them pretty quick. Some of them have ideas of delusion, and we can sort of snuff that out, or give them good ideas to pursue, or they're in their own way and they're talking dull language to themselves, and they need to be thinking bigger and striving harder with a bigger, broader vision. And I know how to help them do that. Ollie and I have been working hard to get more females on our pod. We really want that to, you know, I think, you know, girls need to see other women ahead of them that have done it and can do it. To be, you know, I find sometimes women can be timid to what they can achieve. And all of my managing directors of all my businesses are all women, and they are absolutely fantastic. And there needs to be more promotion for females in business. And I'm just my opinion, whether it's everywhere else, I don't know, but we want to promote more of that in the pod.
I agree, because I've had a similar approach to this. I think we were on, I think this might be episode 13. Hopefully it's not an unlucky one, but we've had 5 or 6 women so far.
It's good.
It's good, and because we want that diverse. And also, I think women often stick within women-only groups as well. It's not just, you know, them the men being together. The women, you know, they'll stick on, you know, like dinner events for girls or female founders or whatever.
I mean, it's hard. The dinner that we both go to at Baddow Park, it's difficult, because you go there, you know, there's 70 of us and there's probably only about 12 women there, and it is difficult. And I think I'd like to see those numbers increase. And I listen, I'm not saying, well, we want it. I think people should be there for merit, you know, and they should be there for the merit of how clever they are and what they can achieve, and their sort of their sturdiness to their model, what they've got. But the podcasts are very good for people being able to see who you are. What do we gain out of the podcast? We get great employment. So we're getting good employees approach us to work for us. That's good. We get deals offered us. We're able to explain complicated borrowing sometimes on a podcast, and that, you know, someone in their bedroom can really understand, oh, it's not that difficult. It is possible. And I think that's got a lot of merit to it.
Yeah, and getting them messages from people saying, you know, you've really helped me with this.
Yeah.
Means a lot, doesn't it?
Oh, no, it does, yeah, definitely, yeah. With the message, the whole thing, you know, I was at Ideas Fest, and a young lady came up and said, what you said 2 days ago on the pod about love and loving yourself and finding time to love yourself in your working day, this, that, and the other, it saved the day for me the other week. And then she just walked off. And it was like, whoa, that was really good. You know, that was great. It was worth all the effort just for that comment alone.
What does legacy mean to you?
I don't think it means a lot to when I'm in the box and all the rest of it, what they look back on. But legacy, does it mean anything to me at all? I'm proud of the businesses we've built, and when people meet me and that they might have used one of our businesses and they didn't know that I owned it, and they rave about it, and then I'm able to say, well, actually, I'm the owner and the hatcher of that. I created that. That's quite good. Whether that's actual legacy, I don't see this thing that I'm going to leave this trailblaze behind me. Listen, if I could help some people get up the ladder a bit quicker, with more stewardship and ideas, that's enough legacy for me, you know.
And if there's one lesson, I realise we're getting a bit deeper here, if there's one lesson you could leave to your grandkids, what would it be?
You really need to think positively about yourself. You can actually do anything you want. And I think that the word is mind set. You set your mind on something and you can do it. And it's having inner confidence and inner language to be able to make that happen for yourself. So my mum used to say, there's no such word as can't. And it's kind of true. There's no such word as can't, because you can do anything. It's whether you're bothered enough to do it and you believe enough you can do it. So for the grandchildren, you know, you can be and do anything you want. You've just got to have the mindset to want to do it. And I've listened to you on other podcasts and things like that, and you've said that over the years, which many entrepreneurs do, you know, you've struggled with balance, you know, between being at home, being there with family, and being at work. So do you ever regret that? Yeah, most days really, to be quite honest, Jamie. I mean, I am, the worst granddad and not the greatest father, and it's been all about me at work, and it's not been all about the family at home. And I've documented that, on several other mediums, that I don't think I did a good job of it. The whole divorce thing's happening, and it's not good. I can't change who I am, and my first wife I'm still very friendly with, and all the rest of it's all going on. But they kind of accept that that's who I am, but they don't necessarily want to live with me in that format. So that's fine. But I think it's very difficult for people. I think if you are a true driven entrepreneur, girls, watch out, or partners, whatever you want to do, watch out, because it won't be a smooth ride. That the dynamics of where they choose to spend their time won't necessarily be at home.
A lot of people talk about this now, don't they? You've got to try and balance it. I think it's like you say, if you're driven and you're building something, it's hard to do, isn't it?
Very hard. I think that the necessity to pursue things and hunt things down, what makes me is going out and doing stuff, as opposed to sitting around or going on holiday. I dread big family holidays. I actually dread them. I don't want to do it because I find them so suffocating for what I could be doing. And I try and do the whole turn the phone off thing and be present and all the rest of it. But I have to really get in a fixed place to do that. I do a lot of travelling backwards and forwards. We're living in south of France with my youngest boy at school down there. And that gives me more freedom to do more work stuff. So I'm trying to do it that I might be here for 3 weeks, then down there for a week, and then when I'm down there and I'm doing my stuff. But for anyone that is out there doing your stuff, it is difficult, and it needs to sort of be balance where you can. I don't condone it, but I'm saying you've asked me the question. That's how it's been for me, and that doesn't mean that it should be like that for everybody.
Yeah. Accept who you are as well.
Yeah.
And so what's next? You got the podcast that you're doing. You've got the master. When does the mastermind start?
Mastermind starts towards the end of September. Got a few places left if you'd like to join us, only 2 or 3. But that'll be good fun, and it'll be exciting. Overnight stays at Better Parts, that'll be good. We're buying more property. We're trying to put some deals together now. We're trying to get a couple of things across the line before the bloody budget. We bless her, Rachel. It's a joke, isn't it? This Rachel Thieves, we're calling her now.
Yeah.
Her new nickname, but it is hard work. And we're worried about what she's going to do with taxation on property and stamp duty, etc. So we're trying to get a couple of deals across the line. I'm doing some collaboration with other people that you know at the dinner, but those things are hatching out at the minute. We're trying to do a new sort of national brand for overnight accommodation. Okay. So that'll be coming to the forefront when we've got that sorted out. But there is a lot going on, and I think the market is good for buying at the moment. Things are for sale and are gone down in price. So if you're in a mind for either buying businesses or buying property, now would be a good time. Because there are deals out there. It's not rip everybody off, but there's necessity for some people to sell because their model isn't working, or that they've not paid attention to what they might need to be doing, or they're in their late 60s and they want to sell and they want to have the money to have control of. Yeah,
and they want their time back as well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And so outside of what you just said, is there any particular businesses that you're looking to buy, or is it like the accommodation?
The accommodation thing is something that we like. We're putting some more accommodation at Baddow Park House, and we're looking at some lakes and stuff to put accommodation around. We think there's going to be an upturn of Gen Zs having small staycations in England, and they want to be near water, so we're trying to buy lakes where they can be next to water. We want to put some saunas on the decking. We want to put some hot tubs. We want to create a sort of 3-day-cation away. Harold and Hilda and a dog, couples wanting to have a cuddle. All of that is a very big market for people staying in the UK in cuddled nature environments. We think that has the big legs, so we would like to capitalise on that a bit more.
Yeah, okay. It's interesting. Looking forward to seeing how you get on with it.
Yeah.
At the end of each episode, we ask each guest for some actionable advice that they can give to the listeners. And I think, you're very entrepreneurial, so I think we should aim that at entrepreneurs. But what would your 3 main piece of advice be to any entrepreneurs listening?
I think the first thing I would say is that you need to work out if it's for you, because if you think that there's this sort of like happy clappy, I'm an entrepreneur, so I can use that when I meet people, be careful what you wish for. It is hard graft. You work closely with your big company and your family and all the rest of it, and I do with my team. It's taken us years to get to where we are. It is hard graft. And if you think you're having the weekend off, forget it. It's not how it works. So be careful what you wish for and make sure that is your real thing that you want to do. Be independently wealthy and make your own decisions. That's how I see my freedom from entrepreneurship. But that make your own decisions, Jamie, means that I choose to work Sunday or go and look at a business on Saturday morning and not stay with the family. I choose to do that because I can make that choice. So, there are trip-ups and hiccups with doing that. If you're a young entrepreneur coming out of the womb, go and work for another entrepreneur and do an entrepreneur apprenticeship. Go and hang around someone that's been successful or is successful, if you go and do it for free or low wages, and learn what goes on. How does it all work? Because it might be that turns you off. It might be that turns you right on and you're up and running. And now you've got more contacts, and now you've got models that you understand, and you can now see, well, perhaps I'm not going to do football training, I'm going to do commercial property or what, but it will flick you into something that you'll understand that could be an earning and churning machine for you. And it might not be, I'm going to create this football training thing for all the whole of the country because that's what I'm into. Just because you're into it doesn't make it the right model to be into. Yeah, you and I spoke on the pre-chat. You're in this property for need. It's a bit boring. Tree surgery was a bit boring. We still do it today, 40 odd years later, because it's a very good model and it earns very good money and we know it backwards. So we do that. Entrepreneurs coming forward, where do they fit, Jamie? Do they fit as young people become entrepreneur, or is it later in life in their 40s when they've just fed up with everything and they want to become an entrepreneur? Because it's difficult. You've got no responsibilities here. So this would be a good time to do it and get some ripping scars in your back. But there's also this later entrepreneur. And the bit in the middle, they've got kids, mortgages, family. They can't take the risks. So it's where you can take the risks. And you find it's kind of both ends of the spectrum. But I think this apprenticeship idea is a good idea because it means that you can actually sidle up against someone and find out if it's, taste before you buy sort of thing. Yeah.
Do you think people can become entrepreneurs?
I don't know. I'm not too sure I know the answer to that. I think they can become entrepreneurial. To actually be able to put management teams in and step aside and go to the next thing is a very big thing to do because you want to run it or you want to tweak it every day. You want to be there. But to really become an entrepreneur means that you stay in that hunting format for new customers, new ideas, new growth, new tech. That's what an entrepreneur should be doing, where most of them start as an entrepreneur with a great idea, then become an operator, and the stars get a bit burnt in their eyes, and then it's drudgery. So, it's difficult. You need to become an entrepreneur with the idea, make it all work, and then hand it on to the who's going to do it and not how it's going to be done. The how sometimes is pretty easy. The who is hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
And that's why we've been buying more businesses with all the who's in it.
Yep.
So you're buying a management team that are already existing in it. And you're leapfrogging, having to build the whole company up. You could buy 2 or 3 companies in a sector that you see gold in, and all of the management comes with them. And there's a lot of 60 odd year olds that want just an exit.
Cool. You're fast tracking 10, 15, 20
absolutely.
years that they've put. I've been running my business for 10 years now. Yeah. Some people can go and buy a business where you've already put that effort into. So. That's great. Look, I've really enjoyed it. So anyone who's listening, you've touched on your Instagram, things like that, but where can people find out more about you?
If you look us up on YouTube, it's Entrepreneur Conversations, James Martin. Instagram is James Martin Entrepreneur. But, give us little messages on there. Look us up. I mean, it just is, you know, I speak daily on the Instagram. I try and do sort of enthusiastic bursts of effort down the airwaves to get people's day going. I think, Jamie, that entrepreneurs are quite lonely people.
100%.
And I think it's I passionately, heartfully think it's hard. And I think by having senses of communities with podcasts or the dinner like we go to has made all of the difference for me. I've got a great set of mates that understand the frustrations of it. You're young, you've joined our community, and that gives me more energy to do other things. The whole thing is about being part of something as opposed to being a solo entrepreneur. That's hard. You know, that's hard. Yeah.
Do you think entrepreneurs are generally happy people?
I think they are. I think that they're happy towards making the achievements and striving to the things that they do. But I think they do get caught up in their own goals sometimes too heavily, and they might be in a position where they can only see it from one direction, and that's themselves and how they view a market or a product. And I think that having a team around you or other entrepreneurs around you that can check and balance you, and real mates that can say, you know, that's shit. Yeah. Why'd you do that every time? Why don't you just let them do that, and then they can pick what colour, whatever it might be. And you go, oh, I never saw it that way, because you're too deep in the woods for what you can sometimes see in your own business, you know.
Yeah, it's about building that community. And having that. But James, it's been amazing having you on.
Okay,
thank you for all your knowledge and wisdom.
No, it's good. I've enjoyed it. It's great.
Okay,
thank you, Jamie. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the Driven Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Drop a comment to let us know what you found most insightful. But most importantly, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'll see you in the next episode.